You close your eyes, you see it clearly. The house, the love, the freedom. You're visualizing every detail, but deep down, nothing moves. It's like whispering into a void, and you wonder, if I can see it so clearly, why can't I feel it arriving? This is the hidden ache so many carry. The confusion of doing all the right things, scripting, vision boards, gratitude lists, and yet still feeling like life is frozen at the edge of becoming. Like you're forever on the threshold, but the door won't open. And that's because there's a silent dissonance, a mismatch between the picture in your mind and the pulse in your body. You're visualizing, but your frequency doesn't match it. Most people think manifestation is about believing hard enough, seeing it until it's real. But here's the quantum truth. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are, to the vibration you hold, not just during your rituals, but in the quiet moments after, when no one is watching, when you're scrolling your phone and the fear creeps in, when you're waiting for that message and your stomach tightens. That's the frequency that's doing the manifesting. You see, your body is always broadcasting. Every thought sends a signal, but every emotion locks it in, and your nervous system, that's your tuning fork. If your visualization is singing abundance, but your nervous system is bracing for disappointment, the signal gets scrambled. That's why so many feel stuck, not because they're not visualizing well, but because they're visualizing from fear, from lack, from a fractured self trying to imagine wholeness. It's like trying to play a symphony through a broken speaker. No matter how beautiful the music is in your mind, if the instrument, your body, is holding tension, doubt, or desperation, the output will distort, and the field, the quantum field that responds to frequency, will mirror that distortion back. This is where most people get lost. They think, I need to try harder. They double down on effort, they grip tighter, but in doing so, they amplify the very frequency that's pushing what they want away, because control is not clarity, effort is not alignment. Wanting more deeply is not the same as becoming more coherent. The real shift begins when you stop trying to visualize what you don't yet feel safe to receive, when instead, you tune into the body first. You soften the grip, you regulate the nervous system until stillness becomes safe, because from there, and only from there, can the vision become vibrationally real. So before you ask, why isn't it here yet, might ask, is my frequency matching what I'm calling in? Am I visualizing a peaceful life while vibrating with anxiety? Am I seeing love while bracing for abandonment? Am I scripting wealth while embodying survival? This contrast is the key, not to shame yourself, but to witness, to bring coherence back into your system by feeling what's true, because when the body feels safe, the signal becomes clean, and when the signal is clean, reality can rearrange around you. What you visualize is only potential. What you embody is permission. I used to think the more vivid my visualization, the faster it would manifest. I'd close my eyes, imagine it in perfect detail, the laughter, the freedom, the exact texture of the life I wanted. But when I opened my eyes, nothing changed, and that emptiness began to echo louder than the vision itself. I started to question everything. Maybe I wasn't doing it right. Maybe I wasn't meant for it. But the truth was simpler and far more profound. My frequency was still anchored in the version of me that doubted, feared, and waited. It's not about how clearly you can picture it. It's about how honestly you can feel it. Not as a fantasy, but as a familiar truth. Your body must recognize it, not as a distant goal, but as a natural state. And if the body is still in survival, still bracing, clenching, scanning for loss, no image, no affirmation, no vision board will override that static. This is why presence is more powerful than practice. Why one honest exhale in safety is more magnetic than hours of visualizing from stress. The field reads frequency, and frequency flows from the nervous system. You can't fake coherence. You have to feel it. Imagine a radio trying to tune into a love song, but it's set to a frequency of static. No matter how loud the volume, you won't hear the music. That's what happens when your thoughts are saying one thing, but your body is playing another. This mismatch creates interference, and manifestation, true, embodied creation, requires signal clarity. So I stopped visualizing from force. I stopped needing the future to come save me from the present. Instead, I began creating emotional safety in my now. I held my body through the waves of doubt instead of pushing them away. I learned to regulate, not to bypass, but to recalibrate, to shift my baseline from urgency to openness. And slowly, something began to change. Not outside, but inside. The vision stopped feeling far. It started feeling familiar, because I wasn't just seeing it, I was becoming it. And from that embodiment, life began to move, not from effort, but from magnetism. This is the art most never learn. We try to act as if, while our core still vibrates what if. We chant abundance while embodying fear. But manifestation isn't about performance. It's about precision, internal precision, emotional congruence, energetic honesty. So if you've been visualizing but nothing's shifting, pause. Don't push. Listen. What does your body actually feel when you close your eyes? Does it soften into the vision or tense against it? Is there peace or pressure, openness or need? Because your body doesn't lie. It speaks the language of your deepest beliefs. And the field listens to that, not the words you say, but the signals you send. If you want your vision to land, let your nervous system lead. Soften the static, bring safety to the system, and watch how quickly the world mirrors your shift. I remember one morning, I had done everything right. I meditated, I journaled, I visualized the version of me that was free, loved, thriving. But then I checked my phone. No message. My heart dropped. And just like that, I was back in the frequency of waiting, of doubt, of maybe I'm not enough yet. That's the hidden trap of manifestation. We speak the new reality, but live from the old self. We anchor into the future with our thoughts, but collapse into fear with our bodies. And then we wonder why the energy feels stuck. Why nothing lands. But it's not that you're failing, it's that your system is still loyal to the timeline of lack, still vibrating with the residue of who you were trying to escape. You cannot manifest a new world from a nervous system trained to survive the old one. You cannot collapse timelines if your body is still carrying the weight of what if it doesn't happen. That's why manifestation starts. Not with imagining more, but with releasing what's incoherent. Not with creating new affirmations, but with honoring old contractions. So I began asking deeper questions. Not, how do I get what I want? But, what in me still doesn't feel safe receiving it? What part of me clenches at love? What part doubts success? What still believes it's safer to expect the worst? And from that place, something opened. Because I wasn't trying to override the fear, I was meeting it. I was bringing coherence to the chaos. I wasn't pretending to be someone I wasn't. I was revealing the version of me I had abandoned in the pursuit of high vibes. The irony is this. The frequency of your vision isn't up there. It's in the grounded truth of your now, in your breath, in your nervous system, in the subtle way your body leans forward when it trusts and pulls back when it's scared. Embodiment isn't a performance, it's a listening. So if you're visualizing love, ask, can your body feel held now without the partner? If you're visualizing abundance, ask, can your body relax now without the money? Because if the answer is no, you're visualizing from the gap, from the ache. And that ache will distort the frequency, no matter how beautiful the image. Not because you're wrong, but because the signal is unclear. The field mirrors clarity. It mirrors wholeness. It mirrors coherence, not control. This is why surrender is magnetic. Not because it's passive, but because it aligns you with truth. When you surrender, you stop sending mixed signals. You stop trying to make the future compensate for your present. You return to your essence, and from there creation flows. Not in resistance, not in rush, but in rhythm. So if your vision still feels far, don't grip it tighter. Get closer to you. Feel into the parts that don't trust yet. Let them speak. Let them soften. Because when your inner world stops fighting itself, your outer world can finally respond. There's a quiet moment that changes everything. The moment you stop chasing the outcome and start attuning to your own inner rhythm. When you realize the thing you've been visualizing, it's not something to reach for, it's something to remember, something already vibrating in the deeper layers of you, waiting for permission to emerge. And that permission doesn't come from doing more, it comes from regulating the very instrument that's broadcasting your life, your nervous system. Because it doesn't matter how poetic your affirmations are, how perfectly crafted your vision board is, or how often you visualize your future. If your body still doesn't feel safe to receive it, it won't land. It can't. Safety is the frequency of manifestation. Safety creates coherence. And coherence, that sweet harmony between thought, feeling, and body, that's what collapses timelines. That's what turns visions into form. When your nervous system feels safe, your energy becomes stable. And when your energy stabilizes, the field responds with clarity, with momentum, with serendipity. It's the difference between forcing the river and becoming the current. I started to notice how I'd visualize freedom while clenching my jaw, how I'd script abundance while breathing shallow, how I'd picture love while scanning for signs of rejection, and I realized I wasn't aligning, I was rehearsing. I wasn't becoming the version of me that had it. I was pretending, while still vibrating with fear. Pretending creates pressure. Presence creates power. So I began choosing different micro moments. I'd notice the tension, and instead of pushing through, I'd pause. I'd breathe deeper. I'd put a hand on my chest and ask, "What are you afraid will happen if you receive this?" Not to fix it, but to witness it. And in the witnessing, something melted, because the body doesn't shift through force. It shifts through safety, through compassion, through coherence. And in that softness, I stopped needing proof. I stopped waiting for signs. I became the sign. My energy spoke before I did. People responded to a different frequency in me, not because I was louder, but because I was clearer, quieter, more rooted. My field wasn't begging or bargaining. It was simply resonant and reality. It rearranged accordingly. This is the secret frequency of manifestation, not urgency, but intimacy, not control, but coherence. You don't manifest what you convince the world you deserve. You manifest what your body feels ready to hold. So the next time you visualize, don't just see it, sense it. Where does it live in your body? What emotion arises with it? Does your chest expand or contract? That's the map. That's the real work. Not visualizing harder, feeling deeper, clearing static, regulating the channel. Because once the frequency is clean, the vision finds you effortlessly, quietly, all at once. There's a stillness you reach when you finally stop asking, "When will it happen?" and start asking, "Who am I being right now?" Not as punishment, not as pressure, but as a loving attunement. Because the frequency that creates worlds is not loud, it's not frantic, it's not desperate, it's coherent, subtle, rooted in enoughness now. When you visualize from lack, you emit static. But when you feel whole before it arrives, you become a tuning fork for its arrival. Not through waiting, but through witnessing. Witnessing your patterns, your resistance, your longing, and gently bringing those parts home. I used to grip so tightly to my desires. I thought obsession was alignment, that if I just held on hard enough, repeated it enough times, focused with all my might, it would have to come true. But all I was doing was reinforcing the gap, training my body to feel the absence of what I wanted, over and over again. The signal I was sending was, "I need this to feel whole," and the universe, always precise, mirrored that back. More needing, more longing, more absence. The shift happened when I started practicing the opposite. Not absence, but presence. Not lack, but wholeness. I'd visualize, and then I'd let go. I'd return to my breath, to the sound of birds outside, to the way my body felt in the sun. And in those small sacred moments of now, I began to notice something strange. I no longer needed the vision. I was already tasting it, feeling it. Not in full form, but in frequency. And that changed everything. Because here's the paradox. The less you chase it, the more it wants to come. Why? Because your energy becomes invitational, not conditional. It says, "I'm ready when you are. And if not, I'm still whole." That's a frequency the field loves to respond to. Because there's no resistance in it, no push, just openness. Think of the flower, and it doesn't bloom by force, it doesn't stretch its petals trying to be beautiful. It simply unfolds in coherence with the sun, with timing, with rhythm. That's your true state. Unfolding, not managing. So let's return to the body. Feel it right now. The pulse in your fingertips. The breath as it enters. What is this moment broadcasting? If the future you desire is already real in the quantum field, then your only task is to match it. Not with control, but with coherence, with softness, with truth. And the truth is, you are not waiting. You are remembering. You are not far, you are aligning. And every time you relax into the now, you're tuning your signal. You're saying to the field, "I trust. I'm ready. I'm already here." This is the art, the mastery, the quiet revolution inside you. No more performing, no more pretending, just frequency, clean, clear, and felt. The moment I stopped trying to convince the universe, everything changed. I realized it was never about convincing. It was about congruence. Was my energy congruent with the reality I was calling in? Or was I saying one thing and vibrating another? This is the subtle difference between wanting and having, between reaching and receiving. Wanting says, It's not here yet. Having says, it's natural for me to hold this. Reaching is rooted in lack. Receiving is born from safety. One creates interference, the other creates invitation. So I started practicing having, not by pretending, but by presencing. I'd sit with the vision of the life I desired and ask, what would it feel like if this was already done? Not in fantasy, but in frequency. What would shift in my body? Would my shoulders drop? Would my breath deepen? Would my heart open? And then I'd let myself feel it, not perfectly, but honestly. Even for just a moment, I'd feel what it might be like to not be in a rush, to not be seeking proof, to not need anyone else to validate my timing. I'd feel the steadiness of that version of me, the one who trusts the unfolding, and in that soft exhale, I could feel the timeline bend. Because here's the quantum truth. Timelines are not linear. They respond to coherence. When you become energetically compatible with the version of you that already has what you desire, the path collapses. Reality reorganizes, not through hustle, but through harmony. So instead of asking, what should I visualize next? Ask, what part of me still feels separate from it? That's the part to love. That's the part to bring into safety. Because when all parts of you feel safe with the desire, not just the mind, but the body, the breath, the heart, manifestation stops being an effort. It becomes inevitable. This is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about emotional honesty. Can you let the version of you that doubts come sit beside the version of you that knows? Can you let them breathe together until the signal clears? Because when you stop fighting your current frequency and start listening to it, it starts shifting, naturally, gently, powerfully. And the vision, it comes not because you forced it, but because you matched it. You didn't manifest it by doing more. You remembered it by becoming more yourself. And that remembering and that return to coherence is what turns visualization into reality, not in some distant future, but here, in this breath, in this presence, in this precise, powerful now. It's strange, isn't it? How we can be so deeply committed to the future, yet so disconnected from the moment that creates it. We visualize joy while embodying tension. We imagine love while vibrating with loneliness. We script abundance while our breath tells the story of survival. And then we wonder why it feels like nothing is shifting. But manifestation doesn't respond to your calendar. It responds to your current. The electricity that flows through you right now, that's what builds the bridge. And if that current is fragmented, if it's laced with fear or clenching or proving, the bridge wobbles, the signal flickers, the field waits, not as punishment, but because the frequency isn't clear enough to lock in. I remember one night I was lying awake, my mind spinning with the future. I had just finished a long visualization, and yet I felt more anxious than before. My body was buzzing, not with excitement but with need, and in that moment I realized I wasn't visualizing to align. I was visualizing to escape, to outrun the discomfort of now. And the universe, being exquisitely honest, could only mirror that fragmentation back. So I stopped. I put my hand on my heart and said, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to hold it all right now. You're safe to soften. And slowly, breath by breath, the current shifted. Not into bliss, but into truth, into coherence. And that's where the real magnetism lives. Because the field doesn't care if you're high vibe, it cares if you're honest. Are your thoughts, emotions, and embodiment speaking the same language? Are you feeling what you're claiming? Are you living what you're visualizing? This is the frequency check that unlocks reality. It's not about being perfect. It's about being precise, subtle, in integrity with yourself. And when your frequency is clean, when there's no tension between what you say and what you feel, the shift becomes quantum. Time bends, signs align, people show up without being chased, doors open without being forced. You stop waiting for magic because you become the magic, not in theory, in tone, in truth, in the unshakable resonance of someone who no longer needs to control reality to trust it. So here's the invitation. Pause the chase, release the performance, and come home to the now. Let your body teach you what safety feels like. Let your nervous system become the signal, not the saboteur. Let your breath be the proof, because once you embody the frequency of your vision, there's nothing left to seek, only to allow, only to receive. There's a moment when it all begins to click, not as a dramatic revelation, but as a quiet recognition in your chest, a breath that drops deeper, a thought that no longer spirals, a stillness that wasn't there before. That's the moment your frequency begins to match your vision. Not because you pushed harder, but because you finally stopped splitting your signal. Because manifestation isn't a performance. It's not about how many hours you visualize, how many affirmations you repeat, how intensely you focus. It's about the quality of your coherence. It's about whether your nervous system, your emotions, and your identity are all aligned with the timeline you're trying to call in. And most importantly, whether your body feels safe living in that timeline now. If your vision is ease but you live in tension, the frequency is off. If your vision is love but your energy is defensive, the frequency is off. If your vision is wealth but your nervous system is gripped in survival, the frequency is off. And it's not your fault. It's your conditioning, your subconscious safety programming, the memories your body still holds of what it had to do to survive. And that's why the real work of manifestation is not in the mind, it's in the body, in the breath, in the present moment where those patterns can be rewired, not through force, but through feeling, through safety, through deep and honest integration. When you visualize without regulating, you're projecting light onto a shaky screen. The picture might look beautiful, but the foundation isn't stable. It flickers. It falls apart under pressure. But when you regulate first, when you bring your body into coherence, when you drop into presence and open space for trust, then the vision begins to root. It becomes familiar, embodied, magnetic, because the quantum field doesn't need to be convinced. It needs a clear, steady signal. And that signal comes from emotional alignment, from embodying the outcome as if it's already here, not just in words, but in regulation, in rhythm, in resonance. So ask yourself, what does the version of me who already has this feel like in their body? How do they walk? How do they respond to silence, to waiting, to uncertainty? Not what do they do, what do they feel safe to be? That's the real calibration. The shift from visualization to embodiment, from effort to essence. And no, it doesn't mean you won't wobble. It doesn't mean doubt won't visit. It means you'll meet those moments differently. With breath, not panic. With presence, not performance. You'll recognize that the trigger is just a tuning fork, a chance to adjust, to return, to remember, because the frequency doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest, coherent, congruent. The truth is, the moment your nervous system feels safe holding the life you're calling in, the field begins to rearrange, not in some abstract way, but through tangible synchronicities, a conversation that opens a door, an idea that clicks into clarity, a path that unfolds without needing to be pushed. That's the power of coherence. That's what happens when you stop trying to manifest from the mind and start vibrating from the truth of your body. So if you've been visualizing and wondering why it's not working, don't doubt your vision. Don't abandon your desire, just check the signal, listen for the static, feel for the contractions, and instead of trying to escape them, breathe into them, hold them, regulate, remember. Because when your frequency matches your vision, manifestation is no longer a question of if, it's just a matter of now, of alignment, of resonance, of becoming the version of you who no longer needs to search for the path, because they are already walking it.